You step into the wedding hall, where every light sparkles against crystal glasses and roses arranged with perfect care. Everything looks flawless except for one detail that tightens your chest. The family table has only 3 chairs: your father, your mother, and your sister, while your place is completely forgotten. That moment is not a mistake, but a cold message that you were never truly considered part of the family. What would you do if the home that was meant to protect you chose to erase you instead, on the most important day? Stay with this story to uncover what happened next. And if you feel the weight of these emotions, a gentle like and subscribe will mean the world as we continue sharing journeys like this together. The laughter around the hall swelled like music, yet none of it seemed to reach you. You stood frozen, your eyes fixed on that family table, 3 chairs, not 4. A subtle arrangement, deliberate in its silence, echoing louder than any words could. For a fleeting moment, you wondered if anyone else noticed, if the guests passing by with champagne glasses in hand realized what was missing. But of course, they didn't. Only you felt the weight of absence, the message hidden in plain sight. It wasn't just about the missing seat. It was about years of small exclusions, years of being told you were strong enough to handle things on your own, while your sister received gifts wrapped in ribbons and opportunities packaged as destiny. A childhood where one daughter was the star, and the other was expected to be the quiet backdrop. Tonight, that truth gleamed as clearly as the chandelier above your head. You tried to steady your breath, reminding yourself that you had been the one who made all of this possible. The roses arranged perfectly down the aisle, the flickering candles on the tables, the music swelling at just the right moment. It was your vision, your work, your sacrifice. And yet, at the table where belonging should have been unquestionable, you had been erased. Your thoughts wandered back to the trust fund $240,000 once promised to you both. Money meant to support education, to ease the burden of life's early years. But the statements had told another story. Withdrawals marked as education expenses lined up seamlessly with photos of your sister's vacations, her designer wardrobe, and the lavish engagement parties leading to this very night. What had been shared in name had never been shared in truth. A memory surfaced, sharp as glass. Thanksgiving dinner, when your mother raised her glass to celebrate Sophia's new position at the gallery. No mention of your growing business, no recognition of the award you had just earned. To them, your achievements were invisible, expected, unworthy of celebration. The empty chair tonight was not an oversight. It was a verdict, as clear as if they had spoken it aloud. You were not counted. As the music swelled and the first guests began taking their seats, you retreated to a corner of the hall, holding your clipboard like a shield. You reminded yourself of every hour spent making this day flawless, how you stayed up until 3 in the morning perfecting the setup, while the family rested comfortably in their hotel suites. You remember the florist calling you in panic because Sophia's card had been declined, and how you had quietly transferred thousands from your own account to cover the deposit. Not for thanks, not for recognition, but because you believed in creating something beautiful for a sister who had never once thanked you sincerely. Now, with a missing chair staring back at you, those sacrifices no longer felt noble. They felt like chains. A gentle voice startled you. Melissa, an old friend who had come as a guest, leaned close and whispered, "You planned all this? I thought you only helped with the dress." You nodded, forcing a smile. Every detail. Venue, flowers, menu, music. She glanced toward the family table, confusion clouding her face. "Then why aren't you sitting with them?" Close quote. The question lingered in the air long after Melissa walked away. Why weren't you sitting with them? Because in their eyes, you didn't belong. Your phone buzzed against your palm. One notification after another appeared. The florist reminding you of an unpaid balance, the caterer reporting a declined card, the lighting team hesitating to proceed without confirmation. Each message stacked upon the last like bricks in a wall closing around you. You had covered for them too many times already, shouldered too many of their debts in silence. Tonight, the silence cracked open. You remembered overhearing your mother just days before, her voice low but sharp on the phone. "Prepare 3 seats only. Ainsley doesn't count as family. She's just the help." Those words returned now, ringing in your mind louder than the music, louder than the laughter, louder than your own heartbeat. Just the help. After everything you had given, every late night, every sacrifice, this was all you were to them. Standing there in the corner of the glittering hall, you realized that tonight was not simply about a missing chair. It was about reclaiming something you had lost long ago. The right to define your own worth. And so, you walked toward the exit, each step steadier than the last. The cold marble beneath your heels no longer echoed shame, it echoed resolve. Outside, the night air wrapped around you like truth. For the first time in years, you allowed yourself to breathe freely, without the weight of their expectations pressing on your chest. You had given them 7 days to settle the unpaid invoices. 7 days of silence. Tonight, the silence was broken not by apology, but by action. You sat in a quiet cafe across the street, your laptop open, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The contracts lay before you, clear and binding. With one steady motion, you click send. Notification after notification went out to every vendor. Effective immediately, services were withdrawn. As the messages left your screen, a strange calm settled over you. For once, you weren't the one cleaning up a mess. You weren't the invisible force keeping their illusions intact. For once, you chose yourself. Back in the hall, chaos would unfold. Guests would whisper, vendors would pack up, and the carefully constructed image of perfection would collapse under its own weight. But for you, the collapse wasn't destruction. It was liberation. And as you sat there in the cafe, watching the glow of the chandelier from across the street, you finally understood. Sometimes the seat you are denied is the one that sets you free. So if you've ever felt invisible at your own family's table, if you've ever been pushed aside despite giving everything you had, this story is for you. And if it resonates even a little, pressing like or subscribe is not just supporting a channel, it's a quiet way of saying, I've been there too, and I choose to keep listening. Back inside the hall, the illusion began to tremble. At first, it was only a ripple, the string quartet lowering their bows, the waiters glancing uncertainly toward the kitchen doors, the quiet murmurs spreading from one table to another. But soon, the ripple became a wave. Champagne flutes were removed from white linens, half-full glasses swept away before anyone could raise a toast. Guests leaned toward one another, whispers escaping like smoke. What's happening? Why is everything stopping? Close quote. You could see it from the cafe window across the street, the unraveling of perfection you had stitched together with sleepless nights. It wasn't cruelty that kept you seated away from them now, but choice. For the first time in your life, you had drawn a line, and they were the ones scrambling in confusion. The hotel manager stood at the center of the storm, papers clutched in his hand, his voice firm as he explained the situation. Without the master guarantee from your company, all further services required immediate payment. Your mother's hand trembled as she offered one card after another, each declined with a shake of the manager's head. Your father's shoulders hunched, his usual authority replaced by a hollow silence. And Sophia, still draped in lace and satin, looked around desperately, as though someone might appear and rescue her from the consequences she had so carefully ignored. You returned then, not with the quiet submission they expected, but with calm steps that drew eyes toward you. The clipboard you had clutched as a symbol of servitude now became something different, a sign of independence, of authority. Staff who once took instructions from your parents now turned toward you with respect. Glasses of water appeared at your side, a chair was pulled out for you, as if the very balance of the evening had shifted. Sophia grabbed your arm, her nails biting into your skin. Her voice shook, more desperate than you had ever heard. Please, don't do this. You ruin everything. Just this one day, let me have it. You held her gaze, the memories of childhood flooding back, the horse she had unwrapped at Christmas, while you smiled at a gift card, the summers she spent abroad, while you worked double shifts to pay tuition, the apartment she received at college, while you signed loan papers alone. Each memory rose like a tide, reminding you that this day was not about a single chair. It was about a lifetime of being told you mattered less. Your mother's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and brittle. She won't dare. Ainsley knows her place. She always has. But for the first time, you did not flinch. You looked at her with steady eyes, and in that moment, the weight of her words no longer chained you. A shadow, she had called you. Yet here, in the glow of the collapsing illusion, you felt more visible than ever. The hotel manager placed the suspension papers before you. With a signature, you confirmed what you had already decided. No more silent sacrifices. No more covering debts that were never yours. The looping letters of your name stretched across the page like a declaration, not of rebellion, but of truth. A gasp ran through the room as you pulled another folder from your bag. Inside were the trust fund records, the withdrawals marked with Sophia's name. You laid them gently on the table, not with anger, but with precision. The crowd hushed, guests craning their necks to see. Sophia's new husband stared at the documents, disbelief carving lines into his expression. This money was meant for both of us, close quote, you said, voice calm, steady. 40,000 could have cleared my student loans. Instead, it went to vacations and designer gowns. Sophia's face crumbled, mascara tracing lines down her cheeks. They told me you wouldn't care, close quote, she whispered. That you never expected anything. But now, in front of them all, you spoke the truth that had waited for years. The empty chair was not a mistake. It was a choice. And tonight, I choose myself. Silence followed, broken only by the soft click of the photographer's camera, capturing the unraveling scene. Guests who had once admired the family's image, now turned their eyes toward you, recognition dawning. You were no longer the forgotten one, you were the one who had carried everything, and finally set it down. You walked away from the table, each step lighter than the last. Behind you, voices rose in panic, in bargaining, in denial. But you no longer needed to listen. Outside, the cool air wrapped around you again, and this time it felt like freedom. That night, in your apartment, you kicked off your heels and sat in the quiet glow of the city lights. Your phone buzzed relentlessly, calls from your mother, your father, Sophia, the hotel manager, even the groom. One by one, you silenced them until the only sound was the hum of the city. In the refrigerator, a bottle of champagne waited, a gift from a grateful client. You opened it alone, the cork echoing softly against the ceiling. To integrity, close quote, you whispered, raising the glass. To freedom. The bitterness of the wine did not sting. It tasted like release. And as you scrolled through your inbox, you saw messages from vendors who had trusted you more than your own family. We always knew we could count on you, close quote, one florist wrote. That's why we continued despite the unpaid invoices. You closed your eyes, letting the words wash over you. Professional respect, something your family had never given, was here, offered freely. In that moment, you understood that family is not always the people who share your blood. Sometimes it is the ones who see your worth when others refuse to. Sometimes it is the ones who stay, not because they have to, but because they believe in you. If you've ever felt the sting of being excluded, if you've ever carried a burden no one thanked you for, know this. You are not alone. There are people who will see. In the refrigerator sat that unopened bottle of champagne, a gift from a client. You had saved it for an occasion worth marking, though for years such moments never seemed to come. But tonight was different. The cork popped softly, echoing like a declaration in your small living room. You poured a glass, lifted it to the empty space around you, and whispered, to integrity. The bubbles rose and fell, as fleeting as years of effort that had gone unrecognized. This time, the toast was for you alone. Your inbox, glowing in the dim light, told its own story. Vendors sent messages not of anger, but of gratitude. We trusted you more than anyone else, close quote, wrote the florist. That's why we continued despite the risks. The baker thanked you for personally covering balances, the quartet for protecting their work, the hotel staff for honesty. For the first time, words of appreciation came without obligation. They saw you not as a daughter bound by family ties, but as a professional whose word mattered. Days blurred into weeks, and soon, the headlines arrived. The Columbus Dispatch ran the story in stark black letters. Lopa's family home enters foreclosure. Beneath it stretched details of unpaid debts, default notices, and lawsuits. It was strange, staring at the words that once would have broken you. Now, they felt distant, like thunder on a horizon you had already left behind. Emails followed. One from the parish secretary, noting your mother's resignation from the church board. Another from an old family friend asking if the rumors were true. Even LinkedIn carried its own cruel irony. Sophia, updating her profile to seeking opportunities in event coordination, close quote, stepping into the very field she once mocked you for pursuing. You almost smiled at the thought, though the humor was edged with sorrow. One evening, as autumn settled over the city, your doorbell rang. When you opened it, there she was. Your mother. Once radiant in designer clothes, she now looked diminished. Her blonde highlights showed streaks of grey, her outfit plain and modest. For a moment, you barely recognized her. She clutched her purse as if it were the last anchor of dignity she could hold onto. Her voice, stripped of its usual authority, cracked when she spoke. We made a terrible mistake. We need your help. You gestured toward the chair across from your desk, the irony striking even her. A chair offered freely, when once she had denied you one. She sat stiffly, her fingers twisting the strap of her bag, while her eyes searched your face for forgiveness. We always favored Sophia, close quote, she admitted, her words slow and heavy. She was easier to guide. Your independence threatened us. We didn't know how to handle it. Her confession might once have torn you open. Now, it only confirmed what you had always known. The wounds she named were not revelations, only acknowledgements arriving too late. Soon after, another voice reached out, Sophia's, trembling over voicemail. The marriage is over. He left when he discovered the truth about the money. I didn't realize how deep it all went. Please call me back. Each word carried desperation, but also a truth you had long understood. She had lived in illusions, while you had carried reality. A letter arrived next, penned in your father's careful handwriting. 3 pages of apologies, followed by detailed requests for assistance. Numbers, deadlines, and pleas stacked one after another. The same man who once told you that you would manage just fine now begged for rescue. You agreed to meet them neutral ground, a cafe 2 blocks from your apartment. You arrived early, choosing a corner table with clear sightlines to the door. When they entered, they looked smaller than you had ever remembered. Shoulders hunched, eyes weary, pride stripped away. Sophia followed close behind, her once radiant hand bare where the engagement ring had glittered. They sat opposite you, 3 chairs facing one, just as at the wedding, but this time the arrangement was yours. Your mother's words faltered as she confessed again. We thought you owed us, because you were less lovable. Sophie's mascara smudge as she whispered, I believed them. Your father slid papers across the table, requests for financial help. The bank has given us 30 days to vacate. Perhaps your apartment just until, but you lifted your hand, stopping him mid-sentence. The silence that followed felt heavier than any words. The debt between us is not measured in dollars, close quote, you said softly, your voice carrying with calm finality. Their eyes shifted from confusion to disbelief, struggling to grasp what you meant. I wish you well, close quote, you added, standing slowly, but we no longer have a relationship. Your mother's face broke in a way you had never seen, tears not staged for sympathy, but raw, unguarded. Your father sat still, papers half pulled from his case, unable to continue. Sophia reached for your hand, her fingers trembling, unpolished nails revealing nervous habits. Please, Ainsley, close quote, she whispered. But you stepped back, leaving the space between you wide and unbridgeable. The empty chair set me free, close quote, you said at last. It showed me exactly where I stood. And now, I'm grateful for that clarity. When you walked out of that cafe, the autumn air wrapped around you with a gentleness that felt like home. Behind you, their voices trembled, but you didn't look back. Some chains break with noise, others with silence. This one broke with peace. For the first time, you felt no weight pressing on your shoulders, no longing for recognition, no ache for approval. The life you had built, the company thriving, the chosen family standing beside you, the freedom to breathe without fear was proof enough. And as the city lights flickered above, you realized the truth you had always carried but never spoken aloud. Sometimes the most powerful seat at the table is the one you walk away from. A year passed, though time no longer carried the same weight it once did. Where once you counted days by obligations and silent sacrifices, now you measured them by choices freely made. The woman who had left that cafe, walking away from the crumbling pleas of her family, had not only walked into freedom, she had walked into a new life. On the terrace of a Tuscan villa, the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and rose. Below, music floated upward as guests in evening gowns and dark suits moved across the courtyard. It was another wedding, another flawless event, but this time, the perfection was yours. You had orchestrated it with a team that trusted you, not because of blood, but because of shared vision. As you stood with a glass of Prosecco in hand, your assistant Jenna appeared beside you, tablet balanced carefully. Everything is proceeding perfectly, close quote, she said, her voice bright with confidence. Then she hesitated, her eyes flicking toward the phone she carried. Your mother called the office again. 4th time this month. You sipped the wine, the bubbles sharp and alive on your tongue. The same answer as always, close quote, you replied. Jenna nodded, understanding. She slipped back into the rhythm of the evening, guiding the photographers, ensuring the quartet kept time, overseeing the quiet miracle of an event where every detail shimmered with care. You turned back to the horizon, the Tuscan countryside rolling out beneath the fading light. A year ago, you might have still carried the ache of what had been denied. But now, the ache had transformed into clarity. The empty chair was no longer a wound. It was a compass, pointing you toward a future built by your own hands. Later that evening, you returned to the apartment you had rented overlooking the Arno River. Its walls carried photographs, not of the family who had turned you into a shadow, but of the chosen family you had gathered along the way. Smiling faces of vendors who had stood with you when everything fell apart. Colleagues who had become partners. Friends who had stepped into spaces your parents never filled. On one wall hung a photograph of your therapy group during a retreat in Vermont, laughter frozen in sunlight, proof of healing made real. Your laptop chimed, a gentle reminder of your weekly session. Dr. Freeman's face appeared on the screen, her glasses reflecting the glow of the Italian evening. Magnificent view, close quote, she said warmly. How are you feeling today? Close quote, you considered her question carefully. Once, the answer would have been tangled in grief, in longing, in the endless desire to be seen by those who refused. Now, you simply turned the laptop to show her the view, the roses being delivered, the guests laughing below. I don't regret walking away, close quote, you told her. I only regret waiting so long to do it. The nightmares that had once followed you, the image of the empty chair, the sting of exclusion had faded. In their place were better visions. Tables you had built yourself, spaces where no one was left unseen. In Columbus, word drifted back to you of what had become of them. Your mother, once wrapped in designer elegance, now worked at the perfume counter in a department store. Sophia, her marriage dissolved, lived in a modest studio apartment, a far cry from the life she once flaunted. Your parents occupied a rental in the very complex they had once driven past with disdain, voices laced with judgment. The irony was sharp, but it no longer stung. Their fate was no longer your burden. Instead, your focus turned outward. You interviewed young planners who reminded you of yourself, ambitious, determined, often unsupported. One girl, Jessica, confessed through tears that her parents thought her career choice was beneath her. They wanted a doctor, a lawyer. They don't see value in what I do. You leaned forward, speaking gently but firmly. Family doesn't always see your worth. That doesn't diminish it. Her eyes caught on the framed photo on your desk, a single empty chair beneath a chandelier. She asked what it meant. You smiled softly. It reminds me that sometimes not having a seat leads you to build your own table. The understanding that lit her face told you that the story of your empty chair had become more than memory. It was a lesson, a truth that resonated beyond you. Soon after, you established the Empty Chair Foundation, a scholarship program for event planning students without family support. You gave interviews, even accepted an invitation to deliver a TED Talk on professional integrity and personal boundaries. Letters began arriving, one from a young woman in Nebraska who wrote, "Your story helped me find my strength." You responded with a simple handwritten reply. Your chair at life's table is always guaranteed. In the evenings, when the work was done and silence returned, you often stood at your window, watching the stars reflect in your wine glass. You thought of a girl you had been, the one who signed loan papers alone, who smiled through being overlooked, who kept hoping love would balance the scales. That girl still lived within you, but now she stood taller, no longer a shadow, but a figure in her own right. The family you had once yearned for still called occasionally, their messages alternating between apology and request. But you had learned to let them go. Love that demanded silence was no love at all. Connection that erased you was not connection worth keeping. What remained was lighter, clearer, truer. And so, as the seasons turned and your company grew, you carried with you the quiet wisdom the empty chair had taught. That belonging is not always given, it is chosen. That recognition may never come from the ones you expect, but it will bloom in places you create for yourself. That sometimes, the greatest gift of exclusion is the freedom to become whole. One evening in Tuscany, you raised your glass beneath a sky thick with stars. Around you, the laughter of guests drifted through the warm air, a tapestry of voices celebrating love and joy. You looked down at the wine shimmering in the glass, saw the reflection of the woman you had become, and whispered softly to yourself. The empty seat was never a rejection. It was direction. It showed me where I did not belong, so I could find where I truly do. The night embraced you in silence, and for the first time, you felt entirely at home in your own story. And so, beneath the wide sky of Tuscany,